Yes, family. Greetings in the name of His and Her Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie the First, Empress Reserve Menin, one perfect balance. Yes, family, it's been a minute. I know, and so many things has happened since then. But we in the building. We in the building, man. I got to give you all a full rundown. Well, a concise rundown. I was off air for a little minute because, yes, somebody reported me sometime around the holidays last year about a video I did all the way back in, when was that? Uh, 2000 and, no, 2022. Yeah. It was a video from 2022. Someone felt like they had to go and report me because they said I was spreading disinformation or misinformation, medical information. They so report me based on COVID. Although we passed COVID, that's behind us. Someone felt the need to, do their job. First thing, I just want to thank you though, whoever you are, because obviously you're watching the programs. You're obviously watching the programs, but I appreciate you watching and thanks for that little report. That basically gave me a time to take a little step back or two and relook things. And so I realized that that particular video that they reported, it wasn't, in fact, the video wasn't really about COVID. I had mentioned one aspect of COVID briefly, like I mean, just a section, but it's predominantly one of those impactful and powerful videos that shared information. And I'm like, man, but guess what? I decided, well, I'm just going to take that, although they banned it and they took it off based on that part, I'm just going to take that out and re-upload videos, and these, especially those ones that have a lot of nuggets, a lot of information, especially pertaining to what's going on now, not just in Barbados, but also in the region. Remember the last video we did was about Trinidad. We spoke about Trinidad and that agreement he signed, Mr. Rowley, with the United States, and what the potential outcome is going to be. Well, 2 weeks later, y'all see what happened, right? So I'm just saying, man, we got to pay attention because what's going on in one territory has the tendency to trickle over into others. So we definitely got to pay attention. And I'm seeing, well, I'm hearing, and I'm seeing all kind of stuff circulating. I just want to say this, family. Like I've been saying before, every week there's something to be worried about. They keep everybody worried with this fear mongering, and nobody's offering any solution. Just a lot of what's happening, and that's it. Doom and gloom. This is happening here. This is about to happen. They're about to do this. And this week now, the new thing is, I guess, the Constitution is being discussed in some form or the other. I'll touch on that later. But tonight, we want to focus on some other stuff. We want to deal with stuff that's relevant right now. Not that that's not relevant, but a lot of it is really misdirection and fear mongering. And I say that with authority because I've seen this before, like so many times. I literally told you what was going to happen next. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen next. But before we get to that, we're going to discuss what do title deeds, wills, probates have in common. What they do have in common is that they cause conflict in families. I could tell you that. Wills cause conflicts in families. Title deeds cause conflicts in families. And yes, probates cause problems in families. So we're going to take an in-depth look tonight. We have a very special guest. She's here with us. I say special because this is her first time on Politically Incorrect. So she don't know we a whole family, whole community of like-minded people doing good, helping each other build. So we definitely want to welcome her tonight, and very down to earth. And this is the voice of the voiceless. If you have any questions, I'm gonna ask her to put a number where we can post it at some point. If you have any questions, you want to contact her, feel free to do so. So before I do that, I want to jump into one. Should I do the two videos first? All right, so we know about Rowley, Mr. Keith Rowley, and you know about Mr. Tudor and other stuff going on globally. A lot of people stepping down from their positions. And Aunt Rose, shout out to Aunt Rose, by the way. Aunt Rose always said, when you see the rats jumping off the ship, it means it's taking on water. So I want y'all to pay attention. A lot of changes are coming, but not necessarily for the reasons we thinking. So I want to touch on this briefly, and I say briefly because although we know, in fact, let me share this one instead, however brief. very short video here I want to play. Let's go and drop this early, and then I'm gonna get into something else quick. Let me see. I can switch this. How can I switch this? Let me add this to the screen. Y'all recognize this. Y'all should know what this is. Let me just drop this real quick. I'm gonna tie this video with something else. I want y'all to pay attention.
Keith Rowley revealed that Energy Prime Minister Stuart Young would take over as his successor once he vacates his office. He noted that Minister Young was chosen by the Parliamentary Caucus of the People's National Movement. Speaking to the media on Monday after the retreat, Dr. Rowley clarified that the president will appoint the individual who, in the president's view, commands the majority in the House to fill the vacancy in the prime ministership.
We, as a caucus of the PNM in the House, we discussed at length, and we, in the end, came up with a situation where the entire PNM caucus is in support of Member of Parliament Stuart Young.
Dr. Rowley expressed his confidence in Minister Young's ability to lead the country.
I have worked very closely with Minister Young, and while many other members of the cabinet could also have been considered, I have no doubt that Minister Young's experience, his dedication, and his commitment to the people of Trinidad and Tobago will ensure that during the period that he has the responsibility for being Prime Minister, he will continue to put the people of Trinidad and Tobago's interests first, and his competence and experience will allow us to get the best of an officer in that position.
He also mentioned that before stepping down, there are several final matters he wishes to address.
Okay, before I get to that part, I'm not going to make this a cultural thing, but it's interesting to see the change in tides and how the tides are flowing, especially now. But this is the one thing that he wants to do before he steps down.
One of which is to attend the CARICOM meeting in Barbados. That is on the 19th of February. And sometime after that, I would indicate the actual date when I leave. But I'm busy on some matters that I'm wrapping up. I don't want to just walk away and leave things that I could do easily for somebody else to do with more difficulty.
Rowley.
Okay. Wants to wrap up some stuff, got some business to settle with CARICOM and Barbados on the 19th of February. I want to deal with some matters I can handle. I would like to be the fly on the wall. I suspect he's going to warn them on some level, perhaps on a personal level, because that's the last time he'll probably be able to see all of them collectively in person. He just signed that deal with America, and y'all saw what happened right afterwards. Okay, so I want, in fact, Maduro is who also warned him and CARICOM about signing that deal. But anyhow, y'all go watch that video. I think it's the last one we did here, and so you can go check that out. I'll probably put a link out at some point. But, I definitely want to stop real quick and shout out to everyone that was patient, that been calling me, been checking on me for sure over the holidays and New Year's. I took that time to really do a lot of introspection and reflection and connect some dots, because like I said, we are recognizing how things are changing. The writing is on the wall, and you know, if we either paying attention or we're going to be left behind. It's really that simple. So I definitely want to shout out to the family. Sexy D, y'all already know how well, you already know what time it is. I know you was here. Greetings to you too and the family. Ms. Dixon, I want to thank you too. Good night, Rasta. Happy New Year. Well, happy 2025 is what I tell people, because it really isn't a year yet. You know, this is January, then it is February, then there's March, then there's April, the beginning of spring. And we're not going to debate, you know, whether January is the new year or, I mean, they have it designed a certain way. Some folks follow it. Some folks are aware of other things, and we work to suit. So happy 2025, which is what they call it. And so I'm, you know, we got bigger fish to fry. That's why we're telling people. Sean said, I thought I had to report you missing. Nah, I'm right here. I'm right here, family. Tim, what up, man? The heart of Ben, Market Hill, St. George. Weird, you in Market Hill? Look at that, man. Look at that. Small rock. Good night to you too, Jackie. Make sure y'all tell a friend to tell a friend. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We got some new stuff in line going forward. some changes. Yeah, a few changes actually. We pushing in the clutch, man. We pushing in the clutch. Bacchus, shalom to you, family. Shalom, greetings, family. Good night to all. Always a thought-provoking program. You ain't going tonight is no exception, man. Maria, greetings to you too. King Alfred, I see you in the building. Daffodil, how cold is it up by your side in Canada, Daffodil? I know it must be crazy. Must be crazy. Oh man, Violet, I don't have nothing to say. Hope all is well. Happy 2025 and all God's blessings. Violet, you know what? I ain't gonna say nothing. You know why? I ain't gonna say it. I ain't gonna say it. I'll call you tomorrow. I hope you still have my thing put on site. Oh man, I know. We gonna put that out there. We gonna leave it right there. We gonna leave it right there, man. I'm gonna let Rolly do his thing. But this is the other video I wanted to add to what he was saying. And I don't know, maybe y'all saw it. Some of y'all might have, maybe some of y'all, I don't know. But I definitely want to add this one as well. This is very, very important. And I want to add this to the conversation as well, because this is tricky. This is tricky. I may have to just skip forward a bit till I get to the section, but this is the other issue that needs to be recognized. Let me just put this right here. Okay, here we go. What's causing Trinidad's Forex crisis, right? Now, wait a minute. There's a crisis in Trinidad before foreign exchange. We ought to connect the dots. It's all about crime and whatnot, young people, and state of emergency, the violence. Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? Social engineering. Pay attention to this, family. This could happen to a country near you very soon.
Well, let me introduce tonight's guest. Her name is Marla Ducaran. Why do I keep messing up his name? And I know how to say it. Marla Ducaran is a Caribbean economist and advisor, and she's based in Trinidad and Tobago, as far as I know, but she can tell me if I'm wrong. And we're going to be discussing the foreign exchange crisis in Trinidad and Tobago. You may have been hearing about it. We discussed it on the program last week. A lot has been happening. Several banks have dramatically reduced the amount of US dollars you can access even from your own accounts. I've been seeing TikTok videos, Instagram videos. All the influencers are on the issue, on the case, saying in Trinidad, you can't get US because there is basically a foreign exchange crisis. What is going on? And is there a lesson here for other Caribbean countries? Let's welcome Marla Ducaran to the show. Hi, Marla. Welcome to Taking Stock.
Hi, good evening, Kalila. Are you hearing me?
Yes, hearing you very well.
Okay, great. And of course, you should know how to pronounce my last name. I was born on Ducaran Avenue in Kingston.
Okay. And I'm
joking. I'm born in Trinidad. Sorry.
Oh. Okay. Are you there now? Because the last video I saw of you were somewhere traveling.
Yeah, no, I'm back. Yes.
Okay, good. So for those who aren't familiar with you and your work, just give us a little background.
Well, I'm an economist. I'm from Trinidad. I lived in Barbados for a few years. I do some advisory work and work with governments in the Caribbean as well as the private sector. I'm on a couple boards, private sector boards in the Caribbean, as well as I'm on the board of CAPRI in Jamaica, the Caribbean Policy Research Institute. Very proud of what they've accomplished, and very proud of what Jamaica has accomplished. I've been talking, at every opportunity about how Jamaica has made so much progress in the last 10 to 12 years. And I talk about the epoch a lot. I saw you mention something about the Prime Minister saying that there might be some changes to the epoch. So yes, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, but I cover the Caribbean and I work with public sector and private sector across the Caribbean.
Okay, so break it down for us. What is happening in Trinidad and Tobago? Is the foreign exchange crisis as bad as it's been made to seem? And what's causing it? But first of all, before we get to the causes, what is the situation right now?
Well, the situation right now is that, so the foreign exchange reserves, which is, I'm sure you keep track of what Jamaica's foreign exchange reserves are in the Bank of Jamaica, meaning, and that's what we use to calculate import cover. The foreign exchange reserves position in Trinidad and Tobago is just about $5 billion US, which sounds good. It sounds healthy. The central bank says it's, about 6 months or so of import cover. Which,
that's about what it is in Jamaica right now too.
Which sounds great, right? Six months of import cover sounds great. And actually, yes, it's about the same as Jamaica, and you have twice the population that we have here in Trinidad. But if it wasn't for the fact that the government has borrowed so much US dollars, and if we take away what they've drawn down from our sovereign wealth fund, our reserves would actually be zero right now. So it's only because the government has been borrowing US dollars and that they've been drawing down on what is our piggy bank, basically our sovereign wealth fund that is supposed to be there to help the country develop into the future, for the future generations, to have intergenerational equity with those generations that exist today. If it wasn't for these sources of US dollars, we would have zero reserves. So that's one thing to consider. We still have 5 billion, and the sovereign wealth fund, which is called the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, has also just over 5 billion as well. So you
the
might
5
think,
billion,
well, okay,
the 5 billion. So the 5 billion that are in the reserves, you're saying those are borrowed funds?
yeah, it's either borrowed or drawn down from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, which means organically our country is not earning foreign exchange right now to the point where it's building up reserves. No, the reserves from whatever we've earned from exports have been depleted. And so what we have in reserve right now is all either borrowed or withdrawn from our sovereign wealth fund. And our sovereign wealth, called the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, earns US dollars, or is the US dollars are deposited into that fund when we earn more US dollars from oil and gas exports than the government budgets. So, for example, if the government budgets to earn $5 from oil and gas for one fiscal year, and we earn $7, a proportion of the $2 extra goes into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund to be saved for longer term development needs, so that we have what is called intergenerational equity, meaning that the future.
Okay, so I want to get to the point where she talks about going to the bank and
reserve, and we have 5 billion in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. That's 10,
trying to get access to your own money from these banks, and
13 or so. And the fact that it's declining is simply based on two things. One, we earn most of our always falling short of what we expect to produce. So
why is production so far down? Why is production so far down? Is it just
it has to make financial sense to them? And the complaint that they make is that the government doesn't give them enough incentives to invest in the very expensive exploration work that has to be done to discover more oil and gas for them to produce.
Okay, look, I put the link right here in the comments for those paying attention. You can always grab it and you can always go look at the whole thing. It's about 40 minutes, a little under 40 minutes. But it's worth listening to, because when she talked about going to the bank trying to get money in US currency, even if you're traveling and you request, let's say, for example, she said, if you request $2,000, if the bank can get you $200, you're lucky. Now imagine you go to the bank to buy some foreign exchange for business purposes. You want to order stuff, equipment, whatever, and they can't give it to you. How that would impact your business for obvious reasons. So as much as we may not be paying attention, this is a serious situation. And it's a serious situation from the standpoint of mass borrowing, especially foreign exchange. And although they talk about 6 months, well, I think Barbados is kind of the same or similar position, if I'm not mistaken. So we should be paying attention. Like I said, family, the link is there. For those who are interested, it's in the comments. And you can definitely go and check that out. And we can see. The reason why I'm bringing this up again is because, like I said, if I put y'all on something, pay attention, because the track record has proven it. Like I come here, I show you, I receive it, I come and I show you when it manifests. So pay attention to what's going on, because if you got stuff put on side, you might want to go and get your stuff. Especially if you got an account in Barbados with the US foreign, well, what they call an offshore account with foreign currency, whatever. If you have that, you might want to go and start putting your stuff one side, because if it comes to a point where you can't do that, well, that's going to majorly impact on people doing, especially business. Traveling, you can always get stuff when you get there if they would actually take your Barbados currency, or maybe you can use the bank system and somehow, through the ATM. But pay attention to what's going on in Trinidad, family. Is very important. Not necessarily from the standpoint of the violence, because that's another conversation. We'll get to that also. But understand that poverty is a controlled reality that affects society, that in turn brings destruction on a different level. So what we want to discuss tonight, though, is relative in that land. Is it a land grab? Is all this related to land? Is it that there are territories here in the region that outside of what I'll call, I can't even call them foreigners, because there are people locally who are having challenges with their own family locally when it comes to land, when it comes to wills, when it comes to probates, assets and whatnot. So we're going to invite our special guest to join us for the very first time tonight. Sharon, I see you too. Shalom, shalom, family. We're going to invite our guest to join us, and we're going to speak to this on another level. I think is more than time that we get into it. So let's bring her on. Yes, greetings, Ms. Ross. Welcome to Politically Incorrect, where we get it correct, and if we're not correct,
Hello.
feel free to just welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I seeing as how this is kind of new for you, I'll kind of hold your hand here and I'll ask you to kind of introduce yourself. Let us know who you are.
Sure.
Give us a
Sure.
clip of who is this lawyer / business coach. I like that part too. You know, business coach. We need to talk about that. Tell us a bit about who you are, Ms. Ross.
Okay. My name is ARLENE Ross. I am a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 20 years now. And if you see my post nominals, if you see the letters after my name, you'll see TEP, which stands for Trust and Estate Practitioner, because I specialize in trust and estates. And I have taught trust law at the University of the West Indies and other tertiary institutions, because that is what I specialize in. I've worked in the wealth management sphere, because trust and estate, when you think of estate planning, you know, wealthy people always focus on estate planning. So I've worked in the estate planning sphere. I've worked with the Royal Bank of Canada, RBC, in their wealth management department. I've worked in wealth management across the Caribbean. I am admitted to the bar in Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Anguilla, St. Kitts and Nevis. So I'm a Caribbean lawyer.
You're regional.
I straddle the Caribbean.
Wow.
And so this evening, I want to start off by talking about wills.
Okay. Well, before you go into your discussion on wills, will you permit me to just ask you one question first?
Sure.
Why this particular area of law? Why this area?
Why did I choose? When I was at university, there was a course called offshore banking. It was still en vogue to use that term, offshore or offshore banking. So that was a relatively new course that was taught at university. I found it very interesting. The whole thing, offshore law and trust, I found it very interesting. I found that all the cases that we studied, there was only one case in all the case law that we studied. There was only one case that was familiar, and it was Estate of Bob Marley.
Wow.
And all the other cases were from Saudi and Abu Dhabi and, you know, all over the place. But there was the Estate of Bob Marley, which was an extremely interesting case, and to me still is very interesting. And so that just caught my attention, and I started saying to everybody, this is what I'm going to specialize in. Lawyers are not, even now I go back to Heward Law School to lecture, to guest lecture, and I tell people about specializing, because generally lawyers, you start off as, you know, a jack of all trades. You know how doctors, when they come out of medical school, they usually think of, what do I want to specialize in? But from while I was at Cave Hill campus, I knew that I wanted to specialize in this. It really caught my attention.
I can only imagine this, like, I won't say corporate, but families, as long as I've known myself growing up, when it comes to land, wills, like, it's like a social norm. If it's one thing that caused disruption in a family or among peers, is that particular area for some reason. So for somebody to decide to go into that and got to deal with all that mess, I think it speaks volumes. Because again, everything else, like criminal law, most criminal lawyers is plea bargaining. Like, you don't really have to do no real work unless you get a really big case and, you know, you going out there like filing motions or whatever. But apart from that, it's a lot of pleas. So there's really no major research that needs to be done. Corporate, of course, civil is it's a different neck of the woods, and so we'll get into that. Question about wills, though. How important is a will? I think that's the question. How if it isn't that important, there's not many people, focus on it.
It's very important. First, I would start by asking, who are you working for? That's the question I would ask. Who are you working for? So when I ask you, who are you working for? I'm not asking you, who is your employer? I am asking you, who are you working for? In this life that you're living, all the work that you're doing, all that you're amassing, all your physical, all your belongings, all that, the house that you're building, that car that you bought, everything that you're doing, all the work that you're doing here now on this planet Earth, who are you working for? Because you are going to leave, every one of us is going to leave this earth. And when you leave, all the things that you are accumulating now, the only thing you could take with you is your soul. You can't take anything else with you. So it means that all the things that you are working for now, you are going to leave it for someone. So as you work, as you go to work day after day, ask yourself, who are you working for? Who is this for? All this thing that you're gathering now, who is it for? And then it's your decision. It's up to you to decide who it's for. And once you've decided who it's for, that's when you draw up a will. And your will, in that will, you will state who this is for. Why are you getting up every morning and going to work? Why? So if we could think about it that way, you would understand why a will is important. Does that help?
I think I've never heard it explained like that, but you're right. Who are we working for? Because everything we are leaving, we are in essence leaving for those who come after. Whether we take interest in that process or choose to let them settle it when I'm gone. In essence, we are going to leave it all. And so I guess in an effort to delegate or disperse what you might find in favor of how you want it to go, it would be important then for someone to document how that goes. How do you go about writing a will? Can you just write one at home and stick it in an envelope and put it under your pillow? Open that kind of thing. How does one go about doing a will?
Right, there's a process. We would draw up a will in the presence of an attorney and two witnesses. When you sign, you must sign in the presence of the witnesses and so on. You must be of sound mind when you're doing a will. There's so much, there's a lot that goes into drawing up a will. There's a lot that goes into changing the will and so on. We hear about generational wealth all the time. That's a term that we just hear about and we tend to think it has nothing to do with us, right? Generational wealth is not something that we have in our community or that we think about within our communities. But if we were to even think of the term generational wealth, it means that stuff must be passed on from one generation to another. That's the only way the generations will keep getting better. Each generation would be better than the one before. When I say better, I don't mean in any other way than, financially, let's say. If I could pass something on to the generation after me, and it don't just dissipate, the generation after me could pass on what they have accumulated plus what I have accumulated. And then the generation after that would pass on what 3 generations before them have accumulated. Just think about it. But if it ends with you, if it keeps ending with you, I did and I done, I did and I done, it ends with you. Nothing goes on to the next generation. And so we there's a saying, we spinning top in mud because we just go, the next generation have to come and start from scratch again. And the other generation come along with nothing and start from scratch again. Because nobody cares, like we say, well, when, I die, so I don't care what they do, whatever. And a lot of people say I don't have to write a will because I have nothing or I'm not rich. I don't own much. But the same person, let's say Anne says, I don't need to write a will, I don't have anything. And it turns out that Anne has a share in the house that her mother owns. But because Anne didn't write a will, the share from the generation before her can't pass to the next generation, and so on and so on and so on.
Okay.
So we just need to give it some thought. We really do.
Okay. I like what you just said too. And in terms of the wealth, and I wrote that down, building wealth. And I don't think I even look again, we say these things, but we don't always look at the mechanism on how to implement these things. And we find that we repeat one after the other, one generation after the other. And we basically in a perpetual spiral, perpetuating this state of mind called poverty. Not that we are, like you said, not that we don't know how to manage it efficiently, especially when it comes to, like you said, things like a will, whether it be insurance involved, whether it be a mortgage involved, house involved, land involved, or possessions. Tell us about some of these same possessions we talked about. We talked about. Let's start with land. Let's start with land, or should I say? I deliberately put tied to the deed before I put will, before I put probate, because there's an order in which things have to go. You just said that when writing a will, one should be of a sound mind. Having a sound mind is critical for obvious reasons. So how does a person then go from I'm sound mind, I want to write this will, I have land, or I have possessions? How explain that part of it? How does that work?
The person says, okay, this person says, I am of sound mind, I have this land, and I want to give it to my 3 grandchildren. The person visits a lawyer's office, or the lawyer could even visit the person's home. The 3 grandchildren doesn't have to be there. They don't need to be there. The person now, the testator, instructs the lawyer, this is what I want. Now, sometimes you may find that person has 4 children, and a will appears with just 3 children in the will, and the 4th child says, how is it my name is not there? How is it nothing was left for me? There must have been an error. So, this omission must have been an error. So what I do in my practice, I say, if you have 4 children and you don't want to give anything to the 4th child, or you've given what you need to give already, or whatever it is, you still need to say, so that it shows, that it reflects that you have 4 children, that you were aware when you were making the will that you have 4 children. You could leave anything for somebody in a will, including your love and affection. So for the 4th child who you don't want to give the house to, you could say, for this child, I leave my love and affection, or I leave $10, $5, or $1, whatever. But you mention that person to show that there was not an omission. It was not an error. You were very aware that you have 4 children, but this is that you didn't want to give anything to this person. So you're going to lay out all your wishes to the lawyer, and the lawyer will draft the will, then bring it back for you, or send it back to you to read it over, to see that it is indeed what you want, the amount you want, the people you want, who you want to manage your affairs, as in who would be the administrator of the estate, or the executor in this case, because it's a will. And when you are sure that everything, all your wishes are indeed there in the will as you want it, then the will has to be signed in the presence of 2 witnesses. And they will sign as well.
Okay,
and then the will would be lodged. Then the will would be registered and lodged at the probate department.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question, because when you say the will, so let me put it this way: can a person visit you in one day, write a will, and have it signed that same day?
It's possible, but as I said, what I would do, you would give your instructions. We would go over your instructions. To me, it is not something to rush.
Right.
So we would go over it and go over it again and go over it again.
Unless you wanted to rush.
Yeah. And many times people write wills when they are elderly or when they are ill. It doesn't have to be that way, but many times that's what happens. The people writing the will are affirmed, they are infirmed, they are sick, whatever. And so you have to be patient. It isn't something that I would rush. I would never rush to do, get it done and sign it. Because to me, we have to go over it. I would reread it. If the person is literate, very literate, they would read it themselves. If not, I would read it to them. And I would ask, is this what you want? Are you sure this is what you want?
Okay. Okay. What about a person who changed their will frequently in a short space of time, several times in a short space of time?
Right. I always advise people not to do that. So when you are doing your will, then that's why you should be very sure of what you're doing. Once people, especially if the person is elderly and they keep making changes to the will, I advise them this is not reflecting well. It could make it seem either you're being cursed, you're doing this under duress, or maybe you are not of sound mind. If you keep changing your mind every day, what I've seen a lot with elderly people, grandparents, the grandchild not coming to visit me. I don't see this grandchild at all. I want to take them out of my will. In hospital, they never came while I was in the hospital. I want to take them out of my will, and so on. And a lot of times, like, this person is ill, and one family member might say, "Come to my house. Come, I will take care of you." And that family member get that elderly person in their home, and they get in their air, and then you hear the testator wants to change the will. They want to leave everything for the caregiver, for the one who is now taking care of them, sort of forget what everything else. And that might be because of duress. It might be that the person who is taking care of them is telling them, "Look, I'm the only person here taking care of you now. No one else is here taking care of you." So the will is one thing, and you may also find the caregiver saying, "You need to sign a power of attorney so that I could get access to your bank account because I'm taking care of you. So I need to get access to your funds," and so on. And so, it's a ripple effect. It's a snowball.
It sounds like a slippery slope. I mean, I've heard stories of people actually, encouraging family members to change their will to include them and exclude others
Yeah.
that you might have prior knowledge of, in an attempt to obviously, take from someone that was already assigned.
Yeah.
And like you said, sometimes they get into their head and say negative things, especially at a certain age, to discourage
Yeah.
people from doing what they initially want to do in the
That
first place.
happens. That happens.
Are lawyers? I mean, what kind of mechanism is in place for a lawyer to safeguard themselves from this kind of behavior? Because I mean, if a person comes to you and you visibly see they're aged, they're mature, I should say, maybe in their late 70s or so, and with somebody who's younger, like who's facilitating the whole transaction because they're not really capable of doing it on their own. How do
Yeah.
you question that? How do you bring validity, or do you question it, or do you just go ahead and just do as you're told?
No, I can't speak for everyone, but I would question it. I question it. I would usually ask to speak to the testator alone, without the caregiver, without that person. Then the other thing, I would ask to have a medical examination done. Because even before I do make any changes to a will, for example, because remember, you don't just change a will. Whenever you make a change, it's a new will.
Mhm.
The last will is null and void, and this is now the will. So each time you make a change, it's a new will. And when that change is being done, I would have the person would be examined by a lawyer who would have to first give them a clean bill of health to say this person is sound in mind. They may be frail and not sound in body, but sound in mind, in order to make the changes to the will. I wouldn't just let an elderly person go ahead and make changes, especially if they sound to me, especially if it's a will that I did before. When
Okay.
I dealt with this person and they said this was what they wanted to do, and then suddenly they want to make a change that's totally different from what their wishes were before,
Mhm.
I would ask for them to have a medical examination just to be sure. And that medical certificate or examination, the results thereof would form part of. So in case something happens, people want to contest the will afterwards, you
Mhm.
would have all of this as evidence.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, speaking of contests, let's assume hypothetically a situation where somebody came forward, they wanted a will done quickly. They went to some other random lawyer for the first time, got something drawn up. Well, they brought something that was already pretty much drawn up already. And so a lawyer is seeing this for the very first time, a person that is not your usual client, and let's say on a bank holiday, to add insult to injury, offices are closed, and so this new client and a prepared document, a pre-prepared document, and for some reason they went ahead and signed it and authorized it and made it the legitimate will at this point going forward. And family members heard about what some other family member had done, unbeknownst to anybody. How do they contest that? How do you go forward in a situation like that then? How do you challenge that when it comes to assets, probates, and
They would
tests?
go to court. They would go to court. They would go to court and present their evidence. They would, because they would have evidence. One person might have one will dated, for example, one person might have one copy of a will dated previously and
Mhm,
another copy of the will dated later, and
mhm,
so on. And they would have to go to court. They would bring the will. They would, you know, because the most recent will is supposed to be the will.
mhm,
But if they can, of course, they would be able to say, okay, when Granny made this last will, an hour before she died, or a day before she died, or while she was on the hospital bed, and they dip her finger in ink and stamp it onto the will, and
right, right,
because she
right.
couldn't sign her name, and so many things. A lot of things happen. A lot of things happen. And it's not just about elderly. And I don't want to dwell too much on that on elderly. When I say I don't want to dwell on it, a lot of times we think that a will is something for old people to do.
Okay, got you, got you.
And people say,
Any,
I don't need a will because I'm not going to die now, and things like that. Or they say, well, I don't have much, so I shouldn't do a will yet. But what about if you are getting married? Or what about if you just got divorced?
mm,
Because
interesting.
remember, spousal rights. And what about if you have children from one relationship and children in another relationship? And what about if you are not married, as in married, but you are in a common law relationship, a common law union for more than 5 years? You've been living with this person, and this person now has spousal rights to certain things. And are you aware of that? And shouldn't you be aware of it?
Spousal rights. Tell us a bit about that, and for both those who are married in common law, as you just outlined, and
Both
versus those who.
for in our law, common law is it's recognized,
Mhm,
right? Union other than marriage, a union other than marriage. We refer to it as a union other than marriage. And if you've been living continuously with someone for more than 5 years,
mhm.
that's your spouse.
That's your spouse.
Yeah.
Okay, I
And
got
then if you didn't have a will and you die intestate, there are rules of intestacy, which
okay.
would say what percentage of your estate would go to your spouse.
What is the
And if
percentage
that
where you don't
if
have a will?
if you have if you have a spouse and one child,
Mhm.
if you have a spouse and one child, then your spouse is entitled to 2/3,
Wow.
and the rest goes to your child. But if you have a spouse and more than one child, you have a
Mhm.
spouse and children, then your spouse will get 1/3, and 2/3 would be shared equally among your children.
Wonderful. Okay, I got you. Wow. Never. That's it. Yo. So even if you don't write one is written on your behalf.
Yeah. So it will make more sense for you to determine what you want to do
Yeah,
and
yeah,
write a will,
I agree.
because the law, right? So it would make more sense if you say, look, this person really is my wife or my husband,
Mhm.
but we don't have a good relationship, and I don't want them to get what I've worked all my life for, and so on. Because remember, nobody is in your house. Nobody knows that. All the law would know is that this is your spouse.
But not knowing. So
And
okay, so in a case like that, then where a husband and wife are a bit estranged, they might live together or might have parted, but they remain in a union and they've never got divorced. And so the husband decides, well, I'm going to go and write a will, and I'm just going to write my wife out of it. I don't like her. She married some other guy, and I'm Xing her out of her inheritance. What position is the wife in at that point? You mentioned earlier contest. Can she contest that will?
She could try to contest it, but she, of course, she would have to have evidence. Because remember, if you're going to court, you must come with evidence, right? Usually, you would hear things like, "I helped him to build a house. I did this. I put in all my money."
The company, whatever.
Right. I helped build a company, or while he was working to build a business, I was taking care of the family, and that too is worth something. And I was here taking care of the family so that he could work, and so on. So there would be things that could be brought forward. And like I said, evidence. What is the evidence? So I know, for example, people say, "I am going to buy material." I can give an example I know of. You are giving me the money to buy the material to repair the house. When I go to the hardware store, I ask the people to make the receipt out to both of us. My name and your name is on that receipt. Why am I doing that? Because we are both putting our money in. Because
Right.
sometimes you would hear, I put my money in, but there is no evidence at all of that.
Okay, that's interesting. I like how you said that. So you basically, show areas where you can go back to say, well, look, see, I did this, so I did that.
Yeah.
But in a case like that, then how successful would a wife be, especially if the husband deliberately did that? I was always on the impression you're married, so half goes to the other spouse. I was always under that impression. That might be just part of
It depends. Some countries, there's forced heirship. Like in France and other countries, there's forced heirship where you have to do this. This is what, it's forced heirship, right? So it's not really half as such, because it depends on the children, how many children you have, and so on. And
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, well, well, we got the will sorted out. We managed to get that done. Some reason, Granny passed away beforehand, and like you said, somebody switched up the will, and now we have this issue. Tell us about probate, and because that's the big thing now in Barbados, and I'm saying it because I've heard so many people complain about going to the registration office, the registrar, and trying to get information on wills and files, and they do find the files. Sometimes contents are not present, not all the contents that would have been needed to come to the conclusion or the decision. Probate assets. Explain that to us, and how important is it for these documents to be in order?
Right. So Barbados, luckily, we register wills in Barbados. There are countries where wills are not registered, where you make your will, and your lawyer may have a copy in his office and you have a copy at home. And it's easier to do nonsense in that case, because somebody just need to destroy the copy of the will, and then there's no will, and that's that. But there's always, when you make a will, you register a copy at the registry. So once you have a will, once a will was made and it's there at the registry, then a search clerk would go when the person dies and you're ready to probate. A search clerk would go do a search and say, okay, I found a copy of a will in the registry. So the first thing that has to be done is that search. If a search is done and no will no will comes up, then they would say, we've searched and there's no will, so this person died intestate. There's no will. That's when you go for letters of administration. If indeed a copy of a will comes up, then you are going for probate. And sometimes even there's a will, and the will outlines property, but there's still other property that was not included in the will. But that's another thing. So anyway, so they found a copy of the will, and they are now going to go for probate. The will, of course, would have said who the executor is. The executor would be the person who is going for probate. Going through a lawyer, they would get a lawyer, and the procedure begins. You have to place an ad in the newspaper. You have to place the ad in the Gazette, and of course the lawyer will draw up all the files, do the application, all the everything that needs to be done. The lawyer would draw up everything, the affidavit, and so on and so on and so on, and then file everything with the probate department. And then that's when the process begins and takes a while and so on.
Okay. Okay. When you say a while, what kind of while? Or it depends on the court, how busy the courts are at the time, or is it like a set kind of time frame, give or take?
But no, I think we have backlog. We always have backlog, so things take a while. And then, so when the file gets there in the probate department, there are people who would go through the file to make sure that everything that needs to be there is there. I know for a fact that right now there are consultants who were brought in, and they go through files and they may say, oh, I saw an error here, or something is missing here, or and that might prolong the procedure as well.
These consultants, I'm guessing these are individuals from the law faculty that would have a knowledge of what should be there, or this is like
There are people who have worked in the area. For example, it might be someone who has worked in that very department and has now retired. I'm just saying, and that person may have been brought back in as a consultant.
Well, we're going to have to trust them to do the right thing and the due diligence to make sure that everything is, the checks and balances are in place. Because this is a serious issue, and I know you might also have some experience where things are not always as clear cut as it seemed. But we trust that it works. So, speaking of trust, would it be easier for someone rather than just writing a will, or how do you incorporate? Let me rephrase it. How do you incorporate a will and a trust? How do you put that together so that one benefits the other and can't be quote unquote tampered with? If that's the right word to use.
Oh, well, when I teach trust law, I usually say to my students that, of course, our law came from the UK, right? Our law is UK law. And so the trust was invented by the law lords, the British law lords, and it was invented for a reason. It was invented to protect their other families, because they would have the one family, the legitimate family, and then they would have their illegitimate families to provide for, who they could not provide for in their will.
Right.
So, they may have a second family, a second, what they used to call outside woman and outside children and all those things. Because remember, everything was about legitimacy and illegitimacy. We don't even bother with that anymore, right? But there was a time when your only children were your legitimate children, the ones who were born within marriage. And the others were illegitimate and would not have been provided for financially. And this is how the trust came about. The trust came about for privacy and secrecy. Secrecy and privacy, because a trust doesn't go through probate, doesn't have to go through anything. A trust is housed with your trustee, and it stays there, and your instructions are in that trust, and your instructions are given to your trustee. So let me talk about the trust. Yeah.
Explain that.
Yeah. So let me talk about a trust. A trust is a legal document, just as a will is a legal document. And when assets are held in trust, they are held or owned by the trustee. The settler, the person who did the trust, who settled the trust, that's the settler. The settler would put their instructions in there, and the beneficiaries are named in the trust. And when instructions are given, the settler is alive, whether the settler is alive or he's dead, all the instructions are there. So, for example, if the settler is alive, there are things such as, let's say, a spendthrift trust. You know that if you just give your son all the money, he's just going to spend it. So it's put in trust, and with instructions like, if he completes rehab, or if he graduates university, then he could get XYZ. And he could get money only for these reasons, these reasons, these reasons.
Okay.
It's outlined in the trust. And then the trustee would pay to the beneficiary as needed. For example, I had a trust here in Barbados where a mother who was relatively young died. And so her pension and everything that she had to get went into the trust, because she had 2 young children who were at school. And I managed the trust. And so the school fee had to be paid the school would send the school fee directly to me, the trustee, and the trustee would pay the money directly to the school. So the funds that she left never went through her husband or never went into his hands at all. Whenever something was needed, it came to the trust and the trustee paid it. So it's a really good way to manage your assets. That's why people say, I'm going to set up a trust to manage my assets. Whatever you have, you put it in trust. And when you put it in trust, you do not own it. When I say you do not own it, the trust owns it. You do not own it. So
Right.
creditors cannot come after you and say, you owe me
Right.
$200,000. I want my $200,000. You say, I don't have any. Because you don't have it. The trust does.
I follow you.
And they can't go to the trust and get it. So that's the trust is always a way to protect assets. When you hear people say they put their assets in trust to protect it, that's what a trust does. It protects assets because whatever you put in trust, you no longer owns.
So let me answer this question then. Would you say it is better for people who are looking to secure their assets and manage it even in the hereafter to go the direction of a trust? Would you advise a trust versus just a regular will?
Yes, I would say that.
Okay. Do you?
Yeah, I would say a trust is. Say that again.
No, go ahead. I'll answer you after.
Right. So yeah, because a will now, as I said, a will has to go through probate, and we just said that the probate, the time, it could take a year, it could take 2 years, and so on for it to probate. Whereas if your assets are in a trust, your beneficiaries can get it right away. It doesn't go through any probate, it doesn't go through any system and all of that. So a trust is always a good idea.
Okay.
And people, when they hear trust, because mass media has fed us things like trust fund and trust fund baby, and the people who we hear have trust is always, the super wealthy. Right. And so we always think that a trust is something.
We don't need that.
Right.
We don't need that.
Right. The thing with a trust is once you have to pay your trustee, the trustee has to be paid. The trustees are paid annually, the trust fee, right? They would get their trust because they are managing. The trust is a fiduciary responsibility, etc., etc. The trust, they would do all the accounting, they would do everything. There was a time when offshore trust companies also had banks, offshore banks, so that the assets would have been held in the offshore bank. It's not like that anymore. Your assets could be held in any normal commercial bank.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Right. So so you don't have to be super wealthy to have a trust, but bear in mind that you would have to pay trust fees, and that could be a deterrent because people may say, well, I have a will, I don't have to pay anything. Whereas if I have a trust, I have to pay trust fees. The trust fees are an annual fee, but it's still a fee.
That's the thing. Somebody asked a question here. If a married couple dies childless and left insurance wealth, how is that percentage wise among the beneficiaries?
If a married couple, what?
If a married couple, he said on his here, if a married couple dies childless, and left insurance wealth, basically, how does that go on to those who are first in line? I suppose then, like maybe.
So first in line is the spouse.
Well, I'm assuming if it's the spouse, if a married couple dies childless, if the both of them pass away and left insurance wealth, both of them has passed away. And they don't have any children. I guess first in line. How does that work? Maybe how does that work?
Yes, right. There's first in line. The law always says who is first and who is second and so on. Who is first in line? But if it is insurance, wouldn't the insurance itself also have a beneficiary, or is it that the spouse was the beneficiary?
Well, I'm not sure. The question was just saying if the couple dies. So I'm guessing that both of them pass away, perhaps in short time, or one then the other. You would assume that would pass on to the one.
And
the
they
other
died in test case.
Then what happens to that?
They would have so it's first in line. They would have siblings, for example, or parents. So parents, siblings. There's always the law says who is first and who is second in line.
Is there a percentage question? How is that percentage wise among the beneficiaries?
Yeah, I think it would again, let's say the beneficiaries are 3 persons or 2 persons, because now there are no children involved or no spouse involved. So then it's divided equally.
Okay.
And then we look at how property is owned. We have to look at how property is owned, because remember, let's say a couple owns property and it was owned in like joint tenancy,
Mm.
or if it was owned in tenancy in common. All these things are looked at. If it was joint tenancy, it means I own. It means we did own 50-50. I own 50%, you own 50%.
Mm.
So we would look at how the property was owned as well.
Okay. The other question is a trust needs to be registered like a will? All wills are
Yeah.
not registered, though. Just for the record.
What's that?
I said all wills are not registered. That is the
Right, but
truth.
it should be. Yeah, the will should be registered. And there was a time up until very recently when a trust did not have to be registered, but
Okay.
now it does have to be registered. But it is not. It is not public knowledge. It is not for public viewing or anything like that.
So when you say
It's not
register,
the registry is not to be shared. It cannot be viewed. Like somebody can walk off the street and say, I want to go and look through the registry to see what trusts are registered in there or anything like that.
so here's a question for you then. What if you have a trust that is not registered? How does that work? Or let me phrase that. Can you have a trust that's not registered? Because if
I
it's
think
a
it
law,
would still,
there were some before that never registered that still exists.
yeah, right. Because only recently the legislation was amended. And the thing is with this, you have the OECD who
What
who controls everything.
OECD? What you said, the OECD?
The OECD. You would have bodies, let's just say bodies. You would have bodies that tend to they are the gatekeepers, and they would put pressure on, I don't want to go into this area too much, so that's why I'm being guarded. But they would put pressure on states, on small states, on developing states, developing countries, developing nations, whatever you want to call them. And they would say, because, for example, if people realize, people in the developed world, in England, in the US, right, in the UK, the US, they say, okay, so I can put my assets in a trust in offshore, in one of these offshore jurisdictions in the Caribbean, and protect my assets and so on. Then Uncle Sam or Uncle whoever could say, yeah, but then you're not paying me my taxes that you need to pay me. Right? That's how the whole thing come about when people start talking about tax avoidance and tax evasion and all those things, right?
Right.
So then Uncle Sam or Uncle whoever could say now, well, I'm gonna find a way to pressure those people in those little islands who are allowing you to put your assets there, and I don't get all the taxes I think I want to get. And so Uncle Sam or Uncle whoever could come now and try to squeeze the islands and say, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this or else. And that's when you hear about blacklists and gray lists and this list. If you don't do this, we'll put you on a blacklist. And now you're on a blacklist and we'll publish that. And all of a sudden you hear this island is blacklisted. This island is now blacklisted. This place is now blacklisted. Unless they do X, Y, Z, then they'll come with a list of things you have to do. So one of the things on that list would be, okay, you need to register trust or something like that, and that's where these things come from. And then when that comes down, it trickles down, and then our legislation will have to be amended because we want to come off the blacklist.
I follow you. Wow, you sound like you have a little political background. You seem to know some things. I think it's interesting because you said they put pressure, but I guess that's to know what is being stored in those trusts. Once you register it, obviously you have to declare your hand. Interestingly enough.
Right. It's usually about taxes. It's usually they would say they're not getting enough tax or all the tax they want to get. And that whole tax story is a whole other story that,
Well, let me answer this question then, since you went down that road. So we got the will sorted out. We got the whole title deeds. We got the probates. We got all this stuff being dispersed as a will. The land.
Mhm.
the land. How important? I don't want to say title deed because sometimes our foreparents back then
We didn't have
they
any
didn't
deed.
really have a lot of the things in their name, although they lived there 30, 40, 50, 60 years,
Yeah,
whatever. In
yeah,
reality, sometimes they didn't always have a legal document, but they may have
yeah,
written I left my land for my son and my daughter or my three daughters. So then this, title deeds. How
yeah.
does this work?
So because we know that there was a time when land passed from like by sort of by word of mouth and
Mhm.
there wasn't any deed, but you know that this land has been in the family for eons, for as long as the family has been around, it came from the great grandfather and so on and so on. But there is no deed. And so there's a whole system. We have a whole system where you have to be able to trace it. You would go, and that's when we say we do searches. You would trace right back. You can trace back, okay, the land was owned by so and so and so. Probably we will say it was owned by this plantation owner, and
Mhm.
then it was subdivided, and then this happened, and then that happened. It's always like a story. I always say it should be able to tell a story. So
Mhm.
you should be able to see where it came from here and when there, right? So as much as great grandmother did not have a will, but there would be records. There are always records.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
the record would show that this piece of land once formed part of so and so sugar estate or
Okay.
plantation, and then you could trace it down and you would eventually get to how this land reached to how it got to you being able to claim it.
Well, let me ask you a question then. What if those records were burnt in a fire, for example? Just hypothetically speaking, how does one now
Right.
trace? If that is the
So
only record, how do you now trace that? And
I don't.
let me add to it now. So, I want to ask a question here: if a parent passed away without leaving a will for land, if you can't trace it to prove that you really are that heir to that space, and there's no will to outline that, how does someone in that position go forward to file
But
a
there are
case?
always ways. There are always ways because
Hmm.
you're gonna get people who will swear to affidavit.
Hmm.
You're gonna say, just as if I come and I say my name is Arlene Ross,
Hmm.
but the records like where they held the birth certificates and so on were burnt. But
Hmm.
I'm saying my name is Arlene Ross.
Hmm.
And then somebody would do an affidavit to say, I, John Brown,
Okay.
have always known this young lady to be known as Arlene Ross. She has always been called Arlene Ross. She attended so and so school. When she first entered, she was called Arlene Ross. This happened, that happened, that. Evidence, showing why am I able to say that she's Arlene Ross? So that's where all those affidavits come in and all those documents that would end up forming part of a file. So
Okay.
when this old person in the neighborhood who used to live next door to your grandfather would say, yes, I know Mr. James, and I live next to Mr. James. Mr. James always lived here, he grew up here, and his father before him, and so on, and this happened and that. So you would go and that you would trace it that way. There are always ways. There are always ways. It might be long and drawn out, but there are always ways.
Okay. Okay. So, and if you let me play God's advocate here and say this: if that's the case, then if people who are looking to do a land grab, for example, that notice can then basically have the prerequisites, like you said, someone saying, well, this spot that was sitting here on this ridge for the last how many years growing where river tamarinds that no one seemed to have been interested in, and there's no record in the system that I was trying to find, don't have it, could come forward and say, yes, my great, a person can basically sign an affidavit that says, yes, I know this person, his grandfather lived there, his great grandfather lived there all those years, I know, and go to a court proceeding and get a lawyer or two to come and co-sign this and say, would
But
that
there,
then be possible?
but if that
If
person,
there's no
if it
one,
is false,
if there's no one contesting that
if it is
information,
false, well, right, because you usually have people, you have land tax being paid and all those other things that have to be done,
okay,
right?
tax have been
But
outstanding
if
for quite some time.
Right. And if it
Morning.
is false, and this person is making that up, then it also stands to reason that there would be someone else who could say no, that is not true what this person is saying, right? So if this one went and get somebody to make falsify statements, then false
Right.
statements.
All statements, right? Correct.
Yeah. Then if they are not true, then there must be somebody who could dispute it. That's what the court is all about. There are always there's always more than one side.
Providing they have knowledge of the transaction in the first place. Not everybody reads the
Right.
Gazette.
But when the transaction, but remember, if this transaction is going to take place, it's going to be published. It's always going to be in the Gazette, and that's why those things are all also there in place where it has to go out there so that somebody could see it and say, no, this isn't right.
But not everybody reads the paper for
I
that
know.
particular section. So
I know.
although it is there, unless you have
Yeah.
an interest and you're paying attention every day, buying the paper every day.
Yeah, it might be. It also would be in the Gazette, in the National Gazette, because then the Gazette goes out to all lawyers and everybody's gonna see it. As soon as one lawyer see it, if it rings, this rings a bell, that rings a bell. So there's that, and then of course the national newspapers, if it goes in the Nation or whatever newspaper.
Okay. Well, let me
But
answer.
there's always all these things are in place for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What happens if you live with a parent and they pass away without making a will for land? You live
Right.
with
So
your
that's
mom or your father,
yeah.
or they
Yeah.
passed away. The house might have been theirs, the land might have been theirs. They don't leave a will, they don't have any information. How does someone in that position move forward?
So your parent has died. Your parent has died intestate. There's
Mm-hmm.
no will, right?
Mhm.
So you now want to get letters of administration. So the same procedure, you go to a lawyer, you give the lawyer what you have, your parents' death certificate to show that that parent has died, your birth certificate to show that that is your parent. If the parent, if marriage certificate, everything. You give copies of all those things, and then a search is done, like I said, and that search comes up. Yes, there is indeed no will. The lawyer is now going to apply for letters of administration. And you, the son, you say you're the administrator, and a similar procedure to probate. All the documents would now be lodged, drawn up by the lawyer, and apply for letters of administration.
Okay. So there's hope then.
Yes, there's always hope.
Someone's asked you another question. Can you then have a blind? Let's go back to the trust conversation. Can you then have a blind trust? Because you don't got to register stuff. Since you got to register stuff, the question I guess is, can you then have a blind trust? And what is a blind trust?
Right. So you mean is the person saying a trust in which you don't name the beneficiaries, or?
Well, I think that it's a term that they were using called a blind trust.
Yeah, you can. So there are a lot of things that you can do. I still think you can have a will, a trust without registering it. I still think, but we have to be sure on that. So don't quote me on that, because like I said, there was a recent amendment. There were recent amendments, and so a trust could have no beneficiaries. A trust could be for when no named beneficiaries. A trust could be for a specific time or for a purpose, what we call a purpose trust. It could be just for this purpose, and once this purpose has been achieved, it's that's it. Or you can have the named beneficiaries. It comes down to taxes, because it's always where are you earning your income, where are you paying tax, where are you, your tax jurisdiction, right? Those things are important when you're doing a trust.
Okay. Well, I think trust law sounds a bit more complicated than just what makes it. Blessed flow to all, help, strength, and prosperity to all who be family, friends, etc. 2025. Mr. Colin Roach, give thanks. I don't know if you know this, Paralegal Services Barbados. Shout out to Colin Roach, who does a lot of work as well. Greetings to Noel. We see you too. Good night to the family in UK. Good night, Mom's matriarch. I was actually answering some questions earlier pertaining to that situation regarding family and land. I think one of the biggest challenges we have in Barbados, well, perhaps across the region especially, is that you said a lot of us would have gotten land, from our great grandparents, come on down the lane, and they may have acquired it in some cases with Violet Beckles and whatnot. Show to Alex Mitchell, by the way. There are different situations that would have happened over time. And a lot of our foreparents, like you said, they didn't always have stuff in their name. And even if some did have them in their name, a lot of them weren't necessarily as literate to understand or comprehend how this law work, how title deeds work, probates work, wills and testimony, letters of administration. So they trusted, individuals to, like you said, manage their affairs and their estate, to only then later on discover that, well, they were kind of helping themselves. How in a situation like that, as a lawyer yourself, how do you get situations like that? And if so, how do you mend them? How do you advise, in that situation for someone going forward?
Where a situation where somebody stole somebody's land, or?
Well, we could use that. Yeah, we could use that as an example. Kingsland Estate has been in the media off and on for years. Actually, I was doing some research earlier when I was looking up some stuff, and I came across an article from 2008. And although I have information about this particular situation at Kingsland Estate going way back, seeing this again to me was like, wait a minute, man. How is it, that they're individuals who there's information that is known about some wrongdoings? I mean, it is public knowledge, and yet it is still not rectified. How does that work?
Well, I would assume, I don't know anything about it, but I would assume that they are in the process of trying to rectify it, and they have to find a lot of, just as what we were saying, this was burnt or this was destroyed, and obviously they weren't even if there were things that weren't registered, title deeds that probably went missing and so on. Because when I look at the system, sometimes I even ask about those big books and say, now that we have computers, why are we still writing in these big books, the notebooks, and where we're recording things in these notebooks, and things like that, right? So things could go missing or be destroyed and so on. And then it's like history, because you have to go backward, walk backward, trace it back to find out really the origin of these things. So I'm sure it would be complicated. I'm sure it would take time, but I know it's.
Yeah, I can understand. Well, I'll tell you what, I had another question here for you. Someone talked to me about what is called a clear title deed and the allodial title deed. If so, are you familiar with those? If so, what is the difference? What are they, and what is the difference?
I don't know. A clear title deed would definitely show clear title, where you could see it came from here to there. It there's no problems. But otherwise, I don't know. I'm not going to try to say, because I think those are the really, really complex ones that you can't do overnight. So I wouldn't try to say anything on that.
Okay. Fair enough. But I definitely like the fact that you touch on the clear, because I was told in terms of it can show the history of the title, as opposed to something you were hearing now recently in the media. It was an amended legislation. I could be wrong, so you can correct me, where now the government is looking to issue certificates of title, which is by definition very different to a clear title, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, clear title would be where you have traced it, or you are able to trace it. But like we also said, there are a lot of title that we cannot trace because of how our system came along ad hoc, and land ownership was ad hoc. And somebody gave, like, I allow you to live there, and then you've been living there for so many years, and then your children live there and so on. But I had just given you this land to live on, and things like that. So then your children come along and say, well, this is my land, my mother left this for me, but there is no clear title. They can't see how the land even became their mother's land.
True.
For her to leave it for them. So and that's why it takes a long time. It's a lot of work. And the other thing is, it takes a long time, and you're not doing it yourself. You have to pay to get it done. And a lot of times people may not have the money to pay to get it done. So it doesn't get done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then the other thing about property being abandoned, that whole thing about property being abandoned because it was left for 4 children, wasn't left for any one particular person. So no one is going to upkeep it because it's not just theirs. It belongs to all of us. And yeah, and so it just stays.
Everybody got to pull their weight. Otherwise, so in a case like that, then what happens after a while? It appears to be abandoned, although it really isn't. It may be an internal dispute, financial reasons, or whatever else. And then so, it sits there. And in most cases, the property, deteriorate rapidly because there's no energy living in the house. And so then eventually becomes an eyesore. And then, what happens next? I'll discuss that probably a little later as well. But before you go, you have a number so when want to contact you to get more information or find out stuff. If you could type it in, I could put it on the screen.
Sure. My number, telephone number.
Yeah, you can go ahead and say it. You could also type it in the comments. I think you could probably this year, or you could just go ahead and I'll have it type. I'll type it in. Go ahead.
Right. So it's 828.
Okay, 828.
828-9900. And I think call me. Let us discuss anything. The thing with a will is that you can, with your will, that's when you get to make your decisions. I have done wills for people and included who would take care of their pets, where they need to be buried, where they want to be buried, where the pets should be buried, who would do this, who would, because this is you making your decisions about all the stuff. I'm going to end where I started. All the stuff that you've worked for all your life, all this stuff that you are accumulating right now, it is up to you to decide what is going to happen to it. Who are you working for? And who are you going to pass it to? And are you going to be that person who is going to start generational wealth within your family, within your bloodline? And if you want to start generational wealth within your bloodline, I say do a will. Start with a will. Start with what you have, your trinkets, your car, your everything. Who do you want to pass it on to? And let it keep going on so that the generations could keep building. And that's how generational wealth will be built.
I like the fact that you said you end where you started, the generational wealth. I think that is so important now, looking into how things are going and how the world is unfolding. There's just so much that needs to be done, and a lot more needs to be said, a lot more needs to be done. I had another question here, but I think you kind of touched it. That basically with contracting with the dead in terms of, can you sell property that has not been probate? I think that was the question, if I was trying to word it correctly. Can you sell, again, someone passed away, they left the property to some their children, and one person decides, well, I'm the beneficiary. Well, I am the not necessarily, I'm the executive of the estate, so I decide I'm gonna do this and do that, unbeknownst to anybody, without even questioning, because I'm in charge, so nobody can't ask me any questions. I'm doing this, although there's no probate or anything. Is it possible to move property that has not been probate against those beneficiaries?
It shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen, because then who is selling the property? It would have to be that should not happen. I'll just say that should not happen.
That should not happen. It shouldn't happen.
It should not happen. Yeah.
It shouldn't happen. I follow you. It shouldn't happen. Well, family, if you're interested in getting information from Ms. Ross, her number is if you call it, because she's a regional lawyer, apparently, a few islands she's registered. Can you give us those islands again?
I call to the bar in Trinidad and Tobago, Anguilla, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Barbados.
Okay. So if you're interested in contacting her number is area code 1246 area code 828-9900. That's 246-828-9900. That's Miss Arlene Ross, attorney at law / business coach. I would like to say at this point, thank you first of all for coming through and sharing which I going to say is part one. I go to part one. We may have to pull you in here if you to share some information when it comes to law, perhaps in different areas, because again, my people are destroyed for lacking knowledge, and we've been lacking knowledge for a while. A lot of these things, if we knew and our parents knew, we wouldn't be in a position we're in now. A lot of us wouldn't. A lot of assets have gone through our families. In some cases, a lot of us didn't even know there was stuff passing on and passing through because we just, didn't know. But ignorance is no excuse. So for those interested, like I said, on Facebook and YouTube as well, the number is on the screen. You can give her a call. If not, you can always give me a shout. My number's there somewhere, and I'll forward the information to her. Greetings to all now tuning in. Monica, I see you as well. Blessings to you. And there's a question for you. Can you appoint yourself as a trustee for the trust? That's an interesting question.
Yeah. Yes, you can. A settler could also be a trustee, and you could also have a protector of the trust as well, who would be in like the middleman to make sure everything goes right. Trust law is very, very interesting.
Wow.
Very, very interesting.
That's you just lit up when you said that. I guess it's a bit complicated, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but it's very interesting because people do, people do. I have clients who have family office. That's something else. It's called family office, and so within the family office, they manage the family's assets through the trust and so on. So yes, a settler who settles a trust, who creates a trust, can also be appointed a trustee.
Okay, interesting. I think that we need to become more familiar with trust in the Caribbean. I think individuals in their respective territories should start to look into the trust law in their territory. And for right now, I think, again, once we start to see and understand how things work from an administrative perspective, a lot of the things we are looking for the government to do and secure for ourselves, we wouldn't have to. We would have the knowledge on how best to go forward. And I think the Bible says it. And again, I don't want to sound religious or nothing like that, but it's a fact that lacking knowledge is what's causing us to be in the position that we're in. And I think this is 2025, which is a year of truth. Revelations have already been unfolding. And well, things have unfolded, but all have not been truth. But this is a year for truth to show itself. So we need to empower ourselves with the knowledge that we need. And like you said, you're not too old to think about your assets and where they go. And I think that was a valid point you brought up about the husband and wife, because in most cases, that is interesting, because most wives would assume that if they are husbands, maybe if they're estranged from their other spouse, that half of it is you're entitled to half. And in reality, your husband could write a will and write you right out of it, so that would be a challenge for you, and again, if you don't have the resources to fight it, well, like you said, it might be a problem. So any closing thoughts for now you want to share with us?
Yes, you said you were interested when you heard that I'm a business coach, and that this is exactly when I decided I wanted to be a business coach, because like I said, I've been working in the wealth management field for a long time. And by wealth, I mean like really wealthy people, working with really wealthy people, like George Soros, etc. And I got to the point where I thought, all the advice that I give these people, all the advice that I give to really wealthy people, what if I was able to give that? What if I started giving that same advice to people who are not as wealthy? What if people who are not as wealthy could know the things that the wealthy people know? And so I thought, so I went on and became certified as a coach, because I wanted to coach people in wealth management, people who are not necessarily just the average Joe like myself, to coach them on what wealthy people do. So I did all of that, and I started just, I want to say willy-nilly, telling every Joe, XYZ. And then I realized that the average Joe, I'll give an example. If you say to the average Joe something about you don't have to pay taxes or some crazy thing like that, right? That sounds crazy. They would be like, no, there are two things in life I must do: stay black and pay tax. And
Oh man.
And
That's
the very wealthy people would be like, the one thing I don't want to do is pay tax. I want to pay the least amount of tax I could possibly pay.
Mhm.
That's their goal in life, is to pay as little tax as possible, right? And so I'm not here dispensing advice to people to not pay taxes, because it's important to pay taxes. But I'm saying that, we live in different worlds. It's all that. We live in different worlds. So yeah. So I did become a business coach because I want to be able to give business advice to everyone and anyone.
Okay.
The kind of advice that I give to the wealthy.
Well, speaking of giving and sharing, you sound as if you're involved in a lot more than meets the eye. Working for other people that are at certain levels, and then realizing, wait a minute, these are the secrets y'all been keeping. Let me go and share this with my people. It implies that you're a woman that wants to give back, that wants to do for the community. Are you involved in social
I
programs like that as well, or are you?
Yeah, I am involved in a lot of charity. I do a lot of charity and nonprofit work. I am currently the president of the Rotary Club of Barbados, so I do a lot of work with the Rotary Club, and through the Rotary Club, I do a lot of projects, interesting projects. Like you said, scholarship programs, a host of different programs. True, and I do in terms of business coaching. I mentor through the Barbados Youth, the what's it called, the Princess Trust. I do business mentorship through a lot of different organizations, and I do all of that as, volunteer, on a volunteer basis, where I mentor young entrepreneurs, people who are interested in starting businesses, or who already have businesses and want guidance. I do a lot of business coaching and mentorship for free.
For free. Okay. That's well, I'm making a note of that. I don't want to say the free part, but I'm just making a
But
note.
yeah, in terms of legal advice, though, because my legal advice now is my stock in trade. That's the stock in my business. So you don't want to go in your business place and take all the stuff off the shelf and just give it away. So my legal advice is my stock in trade. So I don't want to give it all away.
Right.
That's what I sell. The product I sell is legal advice.
Well, like I said, if those who are interested in getting the information, her number is on the screen. Area code 246-828-9900. If you're interested in getting more information, whether it be on writing wills, whether it be on title deeds, whether it be on probates, assets, letters, or what other legal matter like trust or whatever else, you can contact Ms. Arlene Ross and have a conversation. I am sure she's open to that. And I also want to thank you for sharing in the communities and giving back, not just focusing on building yourself, but also looking to empower other people from what we call for lack of a better word, Black communities. And I want to use that for descriptive purposes, because we understand the language. This is 2025. So much is happening already. The idea is that we look at Barbados and we see everyone's talking about it, crime and more crime and more crime. But the different levels of crime going on in Barbados. Yes, there's some that are a bit more violent on a physical level, but the other soft crimes that go on violently, stealing someone's estate could cause all kind of mental issues and depression and all kind of stuff in people. So we got to look at it holistically. How are we going to bring Barbados to a level of awareness where we start to focus on some of the things that we weren't focused on before, recognizing that there are a lot of them that are connected. And so awareness and empowering each other is
stealing someone's estate is actually like, if you were to break into someone's home and steal a television. Stealing someone's estate is way worse, because if you again tie it back to the generations, you are stealing from the generations to come, because you're stealing from all the generations, the ones that went before and the ones to come.
It's interesting you said that, because it's what I thought this came to mind, that you're stealing from the generation of past and the generations to come. Like that is crazy. That goes into the whole genocide aspect of things from a different perspective. You're not just taking from one, you're eliminating from the future.
Mhm.
by taking the past. And you know, I think as a people, we are more mature now. That a lot of us are seeing things happening, and we are no longer turning a blind eye, but we are looking to find ways to correct some of the wrongs. Not necessarily about pointing fingers, but correcting the wrongs. The blaming would fall in place, and it would be assigned accordingly when the time comes. But it is to fix the problems and not just to blame. And someone is saying, would love to learn more. See, so you won't have to come back again. I'm just telling you that up front. Somebody's saying tax avoidance is legal, but tax evasion is illegal.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah,
I like that. I like that. Tax
that
avoidance
is
is
correct.
totally legal, but tax
Yeah,
evasion is legal. This is you see the
that
type
is
of
correct.
this is the kind of minds you have to sit here with tonight. Mr. Roach is saying, wise come.
That is true. Yeah,
Mm, mm, wise
that's
comes from
why I
the
separate
book.
them: tax avoidance and tax evasion. They're two
Mhm.
different things.
Yeah, why is it just many of us simply don't act upon our wisdom? Well, like I said, folks are thanking you. This is your bread and butter. Yes, yeah. Pam is saying we include our. Hence I said, have your builders ready. Yeah, well, we are ready to start building our own reality because we see what's going on. We see what's going on. Um, Someone is saying very informative. Thank you. Pam is saying again here, distractions to cause chaos and play with your heroes. Yeah, we know what's going on, man. It's this. I told someone earlier. Every week there's something to be worried about. Like every week there's just something got people worried about. Meanwhile, we are neglecting these matters that you discuss. Things like this that we take for granted that has serious social impact, not just on us and those that came before, but for on those that are coming up now and those to come. So we gonna deal with this holistically. We just can't keep crying out about the different things. We know they are relevant and they're all relative, but so is this. I want to thank you, Miss Ross, for being a part of this program tonight for
You're
sure.
very welcome.
Like I said, the family, if you're interested, I'll put the number up again. If you can be reached at, if you're calling from outside of Barbados, the number is one area code 246-828-9900. That's 246-828-9900. Can this be reached on WhatsApp for those
Yeah,
who,
yeah.
so yeah, if you're calling outside of Barbados and you want to use WhatsApp, have a conversation, then feel free. She's open to the conversation. And so give us those territories again: Trinidad, Barbados, Anguilla,
Uh,
uh,
Trinidad,
uh,
Anguilla, St. Kitts and Nevis,
Nevis.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Barbados. I call myself a Caribbean lawyer because that's what I am. And
Mhm.
so I do work across the Caribbean. And Caribbean people are one people, really. So I
Right.
even find, even in this area, you might find somebody is from Barbados, and this is a real thing. And they have grandparents who have land in Trinidad or in St. Vincent, or and so on and so on and so on, so, and it's not just property matters.
Mhm.
So yeah, and if you're thinking of starting a business, or you have a business and you need to get serious about it, give me a call as well, or yes, drop me a WhatsApp.
Yes, yes. Well, again, having said that, shout out to all the FADE members, Barbados National Congress. You know how we do. For your business coaching, this is where we're going with this family. It's time to raise the bar. We no longer are looking for people to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves. And that's
Mhm.
where we at, family. We ain't begging none of them for nothing. We doing what we got to do. Ms. Ross, I want to thank you again for having the courage and the wisdom to share, and to be continued is what I want to tell you, man.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Wonderful, wonderful. We said nothing but kinetic energy your way. Yes?
Thanks a lot.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much. We want to thank Ms. Arlene Ross for coming through here on Politically Incorrect and sharing. I'm telling you, knowledge. My people are destroyed for lacking knowledge. And I'll tell you why this really prompted me to bring to you tonight. Well, one of the primary reasons why. So I was, like I said, I got reported, for those who are now coming on that weren't here earlier. My I think it was Christmas morning, bright and early, somebody went and reported one of my videos from 2022 that I had made back then, that dealt with it dealt with in part. It wasn't in its entirety. I spoke about the vac. Well, it was a video I played actually about the vaccine at the time, and that was it. And well, that was it. So I thought. So I got reported. YouTube sent me a whole big message, a bunch of stuff, whatever. And I just want to thank the person. I want to thank whoever is monitoring the page and reporting different things. I want to thank you, first of all, for taking time to watch. And I'm sure you're learning in between as well. But I do know you have a job to do, and I understand that. So we ain't got the issue. You got to do what you got to do. But I want to also thank you for that, because it gave me a chance to take a knee, is the term I'm going to use, like a good fighter in the ring, and recalibrate, and get my bearings back in place, and see this whole, step back a bit to see the wider and the bigger picture. So I did that. I reviewed a few of my programs. I reviewed the comments, went through a lot of the comments. And by the way, I'm going to repost that same video. I'm just going to take that little bit of 30 seconds out of almost a 3-hour program that you felt was so damaging. But the information that's there, the other stuff, yeah, you ain't going, nah. I know that wasn't about the COVID. I know what that was really about, but we're going to put that back up shortly. Nevertheless, this is what prompted me to actually say something. And so I want to put this one up really quick. And I'm going to just do a little touch and go here scenario. If I can just find that page. Where is that page? Was it the one with this one? No, not that one. Let me go ahead and just do this really quick. Yeah, let's do this one. No, let's do this one. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, let me just put this up, because this is what really, when I was in that space, and had I not been in that space, maybe I might not even have seen this particular article here. I might have missed this. And so I want to share this tab instead. Let me go ahead and share this page with my people. Let me just put this on the screen. How can I do that? Here you go. This should pull it up pretty. No, not that one. I want it where you can see it larger. Hang on. Here we go. Yeah, this is one of the primary reasons why I saw this in the newspaper. This was at the end of the year while I was battling with YouTube and taking my knee. Housing plans to, and this is the thing, this came out, I don't know if y'all saw this, but housing plan to include vacant lots, what they are considered abandoned houses. Now, housing plans to include vacant lots. I was like, well, what does that mean? So basically, Minister of Housing and Lands, Dwight Sutherland, whenever I see this guy, I get real nervous, because I do remember him from a time before now where, well, it was, no, we're not accepting cookies. The government is fast-tracking its plans to transform thousands of derelict buildings and vacant lots into new housing schemes in the new year. Minister of Housing and Land, Dwight Sutherland, has revealed to Barbados today. In case y'all missed this, I'm going to post this article. You gotta read it. You gotta read it. You gotta read it. I'm not going to say it's a land grab, but I'm going to say, man, I'm just saying, this thing happens right in front of your face. And by the way, I'm not going to sit here and point a finger at one administration, because as far as I'm concerned, there's only one administration. So this is not a political thing. I'm saying to my brothers and sisters that we've been sleeping on the job. We have basically fallen asleep. And these individuals who call ourselves the administrators, who have convinced us that, we should call them the government, is really running amok around us in circles. Now, I'm not saying all of them, because clearly some of them are just there as pawns when the time comes, to get the blame. But for the most part, these are the old guards, man. They've been doing this for decades, for centuries. This is nothing new. We are now learning, and we are destroyed because we lack the knowledge. Like the sister just said, we need to understand how we can empower ourselves just by knowing certain things and securing what our parents work so hard for. And to tell me that they're about to claim these homes, they call them derelict buildings. Like she said, sometimes families having financial challenges, they don't have the means to cut the grass, have the means to fix the place. And so it's saying, yes, I admit, becomes an eyesore and whatnot, but the government has enough resources that they owe the people, that they literally owe the people to take care of these issues. So we have to find a way and discuss how we can go forward, because if the government, quote unquote, which as far as I'm concerned is the people, can basically take what they call abandoned buildings. I wonder how they know they're abandoned. But anyhow, I guess they're doing their research as well. Well, if the government can do that, can't the people do the same thing? I'm just saying, adverse possession. Are there other laws where a minister can actually assign property that's in what he considers his constituency, which is just the area he's managing, to individuals who come forward? Knowing, family. We got to know in these times. So let us arm ourselves by becoming more informed. Like I said, this is what being home on vacation, because I was reported scrolling one day, I came across this, and this prompted me to say, when we come forward in a new cycle, this is what we're going to be focusing on, the things that we have not been focusing on. We're not going to focus as heavily on the things they want us to focus on. Like, for example, the fires in LA. I mean, that's everywhere. We talk about the blue roofs and whatnot. We understand all of that. And even if there's some truth to it, they're working these quote unquote high energy devices and whatnot, unless we're discussing how to foil that by plan and strategy, then it is a fear mongering program. Because to just say that, what are we going to do? Go buy blue paint tomorrow and paint our roofs? I mean, some might do, some might not. It might work, maybe it won't. I don't know. The point I want to make is being informed is one thing, and taking the information and doing something constructive with it is another thing. We need to be empowered. So we need to be aware of all the things that are going on around us, but not just to be aware of them to be aware, but be aware to make a difference. So we ain't discussing solutions in the discussion, but only discussing problems and pointing blame. Man, like I said, we ain't ready. We ain't ready. So to BNC again, Barbados National Congress. That's what's up. That's where we're going. We're going forward, man. Give thanks, Elder. Yeah, she's a regional lawyer here. We gonna have to. We gonna be talking, Miss Ross. I gonna leave it at that. We ain't announcing nothing, man. We just gonna do what we got to do. Devil's Playground, shaking my. Yeah, I'm telling you, they actually tell you what they plan to do at this point, and we still being distracted by politics. I mean, every week they go there and argue the same thing. I think the thing this week is the Constitution. I want to tell you right now, Barbados, the administrators of Barbados, the ministers, the servants of Barbados, they are working. That is not a question. The only question you should be asking yourself is, who are they working for? Because none of the plans they are implementing does not reflect your direct advantage. Some of you might benefit from what spills off the table, but in comparison of the bounty that's being taken, we could do more collectively if we recognize the game. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, but we getting there. We are getting there. That's the beautiful part. Like she said, one Caribbean, man, we got to expand our mind a bit more. There is no Trinidad. That's just our brothers and sisters across the water. That's what they're doing there, and we got to look at it. Remember the Haitian Revolution. We can't isolate and separate ourselves. We need to connect with the water, not be divided by it. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with the Republic status when we put that flag on the ground. It's time to put the flag down and pick up our nationality. And I say that in part to be continued. But yeah, family, give thanks for tuning in tonight. Yeah, I can't say we back, Daffodil. We ain't back. We never left. We was putting in work. I got a lot of footage I want to share, a lot of information to share. We're taking a very different approach now going forward, having recognized the game. Every week, there's something to keep you discussing, except the plans and how to implement going forward. I want y'all to focus on that. Food for thought, man. Food for thought. Food for thought. Being a Caribbean cannot and must not tolerate nor support any form of neo-colonial politics nor policies. I like that, Elder. I'm loving it. We cannot support any form of it. None. We're not dealing with it at all, man. I see y'all having, working on steroids. I see y'all putting in a conversation, man. Correct. Who are they working for? We know exactly who they're working for. The Elder just said it. But that's what they're supposed to do. That's the thing. That is what they're supposed to do. That is their job. I think we are the ones who are mistaken They working for us. They'd never been working for us. I don't know. That's not the year for that. We got to work for us. That's why we don't have anything. We ain't been working. We've been looking at them for the fish rather than learn the art of fishing. Right, Bish? Inside joke, man. Inside joke. Look, family, what time is it? I got to roll out here, man. I ain't going to keep you long tonight, but I got 2 more videos. Should I show them? Should I? I think I should at least touch on one of them. Okay, I'm gonna touch on one. I ain't gonna do the other one. I might do it in part in preparation for next program. And so I'm gonna go to this one real quick. Now I saw this. I gotta touch this only because I did a whole program on this before, and right after I did that, this came out, which I thought was I don't know, man. Like I know they be studying, and I know who they be studying. So clearly. So let me just put this up here, family. Let me just add this right here as well. Some of y'all may have seen this. Some of y'all might not have seen it. It's a new series by The Nation newspaper. No other. The Nation newspaper. I'm just going to leave it at that for now. But let me just play this part right here. This section.
As it relates to...
It's called The Streets, by the way. And this is episode 1, where they're going on the blocks. They're doing basically what we've been doing for a while. They decide to now, kind of join in the whole thing and give it a trial run. But what they're doing is backing it with statistics that we might not have had. But listen carefully to this section. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. It might upset some folks. I don't know, but it's gonna be my thoughts and my views on this. Let's give it an ear.
Indeed, there are several risk factors. Cheryl Willoughby is director of the Criminal Justice Research and Planning Unit.
We did a study in 2019, 2020. Professor Devonish would have done that study for us that looked at the risk factors within the communities, and we also looked at the risk factors from the individual perspective. The risk factors at the community level, we saw a high number of youngsters disengage at the community level, not going to school, hanging around on the block. We saw pockets of poverty, obviously. We saw densely populated communities where sometimes you would see 8 or 9 persons living in a household with 2-bedroom households. And also we saw some of these youngsters who indicated that they needed a job but could not get a job. Right? So unemployment was also an issue there. When we looked at these youngsters now at an individual level to identify risk factors, we saw that many of them came from, the single family home. They indicated to us they did not have any male role models. Some of them had male models, yes, but those were also incarcerated. They had problems with their family relationships, especially the girls having problems with their parents and so on. And that's why a lot of them indicated that they left home for whatever reason, right? So those were some of the risk factors we saw at the individual level.
Jamari.
Well, I just want to touch on that part there. The issues we saw at the individual level and so on. They did this in 2019, according to what you just said. This is why I tell people that, again, show it to BAP, BAP in its form, choices and consequences. We would have been having these discussions with this same office years before this. I mean, years before this. And the thing is, it's documented. Like it's documented. What they're doing now years later is interesting because 2019 to now, I mean, come on. The amount of situations that have happened, the amount of young men who have been unalived in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, the last decade, a lot of what is happening now could have been avoided. I mean, because like I said, we brought a whole program to show how effective this could be, because we have tested it in other parts of the region that were far more, in fact, where we are now, they were far more advanced than where we are now. And it showed to be effective even there. And we brought the information, the research to the researchers that apparently do planning as well, they had no plan in place for almost over a decade. But they're doing something now. So I didn't say that to commend them as if, well, they're doing something finally. I'm actually looking to challenge that and ask myself, you know, what are the solutions, man? Because inherent and implicit in what they're actually saying and doing is part of the problem. Full stop. And it ain't nothing new. It is socially engineered. They didn't tell you that. I mean, they got all the numbers. They can go all the way back and show you how we came from one place to where we are now. They can show you the progression of this situation. They have always known and have never done nothing. We, the people, we got to do for ourselves what we got to do for ourselves. We cannot sit down and wait on no politician. I ain't gonna say that, man. Straight. But anyhow, y'all gonna learn today, man. I ain't gonna say this program, but I got something coming that's going to definitely shock some folks. And the reason I'm saying I'm not gonna say it in this program, I don't want to be outlandish. That's not the objective. But what's coming next? This is the what I was saying. I'll leave it for next time. Hold on a second. Let me just go ahead and switch screens real quick. I'm leaving two things for next program, but I'm telling you, it's going to be, y'all know who's coming up, man. Y'all should know who I'm going to put on here next program, man. Just for the record, man. My prime servant, for sure. In fact, let me just give you a little snippet. Hang on a second. But y'all know this already, but I got a perspective that is quite intriguing.
Family and friends all, Happy New Year. As we celebrate the beginning of 2025, I do so with complete excitement and, yes, great expectations. This year, I believe, stands to be one of the greatest our country has ever seen. In 2024, we came together to lay the groundwork for success with hard work and determination. We will continue to do so. But in 2025, we're going to start to see the results of it. This year, we also will have the privilege of welcoming all Bajans from near and far to come long home to celebrate all things Barbados with We Gather in 2025. We started this in 2020 and it didn't quite work. We had plans and God had plans, and we have emerged from those things 5 years later stronger and better.
I'm sorry, I got to stop it there. Otherwise, I'm going to start laughing. And I don't want y'all to misinterpret why I'm laughing. But Miss Motley, I don't know if you're going to get this one. And I'm saying, Miss Motley, my the thing is, people always say, well, you always, whatever. Yeah, the number on the screen, though, I'm going to tell you this right here. Not that you need it from the screen. We have some questions we'd like to answer. A little conversation, man. Why not? So I put it out there in 2025. The people want to have a conversation. And like I said, I've been saying this for a while. I had one question to ask her, which I finally did when I did run into her. Universe organized it that way that we actually did literally run into each other in this small rock, as fate would have had it. And I did answer the question. I was sincere. I didn't video record it, but we did answer the question. The response was epic, though. The response was, I don't know. Man. But I think right now we have some questions going forward that are very pertinent. And I think that we need to look at this very serious because there is only one Barbados, and there are different people who have different experiences. But there's only one rock, man, and it's big enough for everybody. And I know that for a fact. So we want to set the record straight so that whatever plans they have, they're doing, and whatever plans we have, we are aware and we are doing. I told someone earlier today, when you think about the gospel story, because we hear all this totalitarian despot and all this stuff, she's a dictator and all this other stuff. That may or may not be, I don't know. What I will say though is that we read the Bible, we hear the story of the New Jerusalem and the hereafter, the new world. In that new world, however, there are a certain amount of folks that will be taken away from this earth, and only a few will be kept behind, in this new city where you will own nothing and you will love it. You will have nothing, you will own nothing, and you will love it. I think Christians call it heaven. The socialists probably call it New World Order. It sounds like the same plan as far as I'm concerned. So I always ask myself, what if, right, we looking at this thing all wrong? Like really all wrong. Like we really don't get it. What we need to get is that this thing is happening right in front of us, though. Whether we agree, disagree, like, don't like, support, don't support, it is unfolding. And none of us, unless we are on the inside of the plan, really knows the plan. So you got to have a plan of your own. So make sure as a family, you have discussions. Like I said, bring the family together. Start having discussions in the home. Talk to your children. Talk to your spouse, your wife. Start planning. We talk with the backyard garden. I don't want to even touch on that because although we have that, we still need a community space where we can do a lot more because planting one drum and sweet potatoes and everybody do the same thing. Some can, some can't. We got to find that balance where we can make it happen together, family. But the idea of be gathering for myself and the Barbados National Congress is a different program. Same idea, different program. We're going to discuss that next time we come on. So I'll save that clip. It's already 2 hours. We don't want to stay late. What time is it? Minutes 11. We're not going to stay late. So family, give thanks for tuning in. Like I said, give thanks for those who were checking on the Rasta man. We here. We here. Thanks for gathering. We've been gathering. And we're going to keep gathering. And that's how it go. We're going to grow and we're going to keep growing. And that's how it is, man. I have a program I want to bring also. And I'm going to do this same clip when we come back. If not Wednesday, Friday, I'll let you know beforehand so you'll be aware beforehand. There's some changes, like I said, we're going to make for efficiency purposes. Thanks to my dear friend, Ms. Critchlow, as well for ideas. And so we're going to put some things in motion. So until then, family, all I can tell you is stay informed. Stay informed, get information, and get informed. I want to thank Arlene Ross again for coming through, the regional lawyer and business coach, for sharing that knowledge with us. It's about knowledge now. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, but we're not going to withhold knowledge at this point. It's time to give that. It's time to pour that out. We were waiting for the Aquarius time, but we know we're here. Well, let's pour the knowledge out. That's what it is. We're not supporting the fear mongering. Nah. And as far as the Constitution of Barbados, let me say this to you, family, and be very clear on this. Very clear. The Constitution of Barbados applied when it was first written to the plantocracy. That's who it was written for, which is a contract for the corporation that's basically utilizing the space here that these administrators work for. That's who they work for. They don't work for you, the people that were here. That's not who they're working for. And so we need to put that in perspective. So asking them for anything is not the way to go. Doing for yourself. God has given you a pulse. Feel your wrist. You feel your own pulse. That is your sovereignty right there. That is your rights right there. That is your divine right there to exist here and not be marginalized by anybody else. There's no law that is written. Absolutely none. You could ask Mr. Ralph Torn, Miss Mia Montley, the Attorney General, or any one of the other, white wig people, whether there's a law that puts one individual over another, which is another conversation as an individual, but no man has rules over another man. There's no law that says that. So start learning your own, how to govern yourself according by divine law and order. And that's where we stand, you know what I mean? So to be continued, family. Of course, if I'm going to close out tonight, Daffodil, you already know what song I'm going to play. If I got to pick a tune, I'm going to pick a tune. You already know what tune it's going to be, man. It's going to be one tune. I'll play the first part of it. And guess what? I have some t-shirts to give away. Hang on a second. I got some t-shirts to give away. I got some fresh t-shirts. I owe some people some t-shirts. Let me start by saying that, yes, they called me out on the program a few times and put me on the spot. What part of my t-shirt? Well, I got your t-shirt now, right? Let me get that to you. Special delivery. But we also got some other t-shirts as well to give away, politically incorrect t-shirts. So if you want to grab your shirt, shout at me. The number's on the screen. And also, if I owe you a shirt, if I don't recall, which I think I recall the 2 people I owe shirts to. I definitely remember one. Yeah, won't let me forget at all. But I got the shirts covered. So having said that, I'm going to play this tune. And I'm definitely giving away a shirt tonight for someone who can guess this tune. Yeah, who could guess this tune? by name. Do I have it? I don't have it yet. Wait a minute. I'm gonna play the first part of the tune. If you get the tune right, if you can tell me which song it is, I'll definitely hit you up with a shirt. What's going on here in the comments? Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Lots of stuff going on here. Correct. Who you're working for? Jackie, all is well, right, family? Shout out to moms and matriarch, man. Looking forward to having a conversation by the end of the week. Let me see who else is here. Same objective, different tools. That's right. Tonight it was Starcom Network doing a series. Okay, everybody talking about it now, man. All right, Jackie. I see you. Sean is saying crime to Spain, Barbados. I see you, Jackie. I got you. Stop stealing our generational wealth as for our education, aka indoctrination, to fail, yes, or rise. That's what it is about, failing to rise, and they're going after the youths. Escalating violence plays directly into their agenda. It is literally that time that they're putting in motion, and then so we know what we got to do, and that's because the youth are misled because they lack knowledge, and that's just what it is. They don't know who they are, so they gave them. We didn't give them the knowledge, so they gave them knowledge through the media, social media, the movies, every school environment, church environment, society. That's what it is, man. She said, Mia is a gangster, a lot of talk, and she's full of, okay, I'm coming home for her. Nah, wait, hold up, Noel. Be easy, man. Mia just the manager. She don't run the program. She's just part of it. Just a part of it. Just a cog in the wheel. This thing is way bigger than we can imagine, man. He said Owen was right about her. And I keep hearing people say Owen was right about her. Well, she was right about Owen too. I mean, if you again, I don't get this. Yes, Owen might have been right or wrong. I don't know. But they all in the same, they all part of the same. Look, before it became, you know what? Let me see if I have it right here. Hang on a second. I got it right here. Hang on a second. I got it right here. Got it right here. I got it right here, man. Family, look, you see this right here? Legislation for legal professions in Barbados. I mean, you probably could try to get your hands on a copy. I don't know if you probably still can. I'm hearing that you can't get prints from the printery. I'm not sure if that's still the truth. You see this right here? I'm telling you, you read that right there, man. You have a very different perspective on these politicians, especially the ones that are lawyers, and especially the senior counsel / king's counselors / former queen's counsels. I'm telling you, family, we don't have a clue that we don't even have a clue, man. You know what I'm saying? Good night, Elder. Family, you ain't missed nothing, man. Push rewind. You know how we do. Bring it forward. You don't miss a thing, man. You miss a thing. Good night to everyone, for sure. Have a restful night, everyone. Same to you, family. Constitution, aka a con. Again, it's a contract. That's the contract. That's what it is. The Constitution is the contract. So something in the corporation of SVG. Yes. Wait, Auntie Gemma. Wait, now, Jenny, where you been? I didn't see you for a minute, family. You ain't miss anything, man. Just pull it forward. You got tell a friend, family. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, or make sure at least share it. Don't mind all the other stuff. Make sure you like and share it for sure, though. That is a must going forward. We definitely got to tell a friend. We are destroyed for lack of knowledge, and the more knowledge we get, the more we're going to get it to the point where we know what time it is. Again, if you want to get a hold of the sister that was here early, Miss Arlene Ross, let me put a number back on the screen. If I can pull it up really quick. I'm scrolling real quick. Give me a second. Let me go ahead and drop this right here if I can find it. Okay. Is it that many comments? I can't even find it. That is crazy. Wait, is that it? Yeah, there you go. There you go. Right, Miss Arlene Ross. She's an attorney at law. Her number is, if you're outside of Barbados, 246-828-9900, and she's at the bar in Trinidad, Tobago, Anguilla, St. Kitts, St. Nevis, St. Vincent, and Barbados. So you can definitely give her a shout if you're in those territories and you need some guidance and direction, whether in the legal field or the business field. She does it all. So yes, family, give thanks for tuning in. Family, I got a t-shirt for you. You can tell me this tune real quick. I don't know if you can get this one here right though, man. Yes, that's it right there. That's all I'm going to play. Somebody tell me quick, fast. What song is that? Who is the artist at the very least? And I have a politically incorrect t-shirt for you. Yes, that's it right there. So somebody can tell me what it is, man. What it is. Tim said, "One love, Bob." That was close, but not close enough. Definitely not close enough. Think of the context of the program tonight. Yes, I was on vacation. Somebody reported my page. That's why I was gone for a little minute. They reported the page, said I put up a video spreading wrong medical information. Although it wasn't even, it was a clip I played in one of my programs from 2022. So I just want to thank them for still viewing the videos from so far forward, and then bringing it forward to this time, man. Auntie Jenny said, "Who the cap fit?" Close, but not close enough. I'm gonna play it one more time. I give it a little piece more, just a clip more, man. Come on, family. Let me see who's been paying attention. Agreed. All in the same kitchen, cooking a pot of a soup with all stolen and ingredients. Bunch of parasites. Yeah, they're basically the imposters, man. We are the state, we are the crown, we are the ones they talk about. But no, that's the inside secret. No one is telling us this. No one is talking about this. And in spite of anybody crossing the floor, and yes, I'm going to speak on the one who can't be spoken on. Anybody crossing the floor that is speaking against what's happening on the other side of the floor, if they are not giving you disinformation, they're giving you disinformation straight. Because they know it. So why don't they ever speak on these matters? It's always one thing: where the money going? The only thing that folks seem to be concerned with right now is where the money going, which is funny because it's not even money. It's basically paper that they print in the central bank, convince us to use as legal tender. It says it right on it. And we accept when they talk about money that we think they mean in that paper that we have in our pockets. We really assume that when they talk about money and government spending, we assume that's what they're talking about. They are not talking about that, family. Yeah, let's say rock my boat. Nah, close enough. You're getting a little closer. Come on. You want to hear nothing from Babylon. I know you want to hear that. She got some new tunes out as well. Well, look, man, I just gonna go ahead and let this tune drop, man. You know what I'm saying? I know that this is a tough one, man. So capture land, family. That's supposed to know that, man.
I have this mercy. I'm a old slave driver.
Tell me.
Time is catching up on you. Old slave driver. I know you since them are on. So carry we go home. I bring the runner east. Well, come on a Rasta man. A Rasta.
I live on the capture land. That's not it.
Nice to dread and terror upon them.
Good
God of grace, Lord will. I have his mercy. I'm a old slave driver. Time is catching up on you, old slave driver. I know you since them are on. So carry we go home. I bring the brown east. Well, come on a Rasta man. A Rasta no live on no capital land. What you mean? Carry we go home. What you mean? I said we settle and cease. Well, come on a Rasta man. A Rasta no live on no capital land. Well, Lord America a capital and the whole of Jamaica a capital and a long time them want trick the Rasta man. Like them no know say that man a real African. You think me no member King Ferdinand and thief in Columbus have a golden plan. They make a wrong turn and end up in Caribbean. One Ras then a side kill enough Indian. Lord burn paradise in a plantation and bring cross one ship load the African. Now here comes the thief in Queen from England. Now she come well and Henry Maga. That ship on top a century full of separation. And after 400 years me send a reparation. I know them want to kill me with the taxation. But I beg you please take me to the motherland. I beg you carry me go home. I bring me from the east. Well, come on a Rasta man. A Rasta no live on no capital. Could I never carry me go home? Carry me go home. I said we settle and cease. Come on a Rasta man. A Rasta no live on no capital. Watch them pan it up at the hill and looking at them play to we properly feel. Because downtown have shot off the kill. Them tell the tourists if we stop on the grill. So come make we start a new chapter. We not escape on the land where them capture. And we say Africa fi all to Rasta. I so go tell the unscrupulous factors. Say, carry we go home. I bring we run a east well. Come on a Rasta man. A Rasta no live on no capital. Go tell them now. Carry we go home. After we settle and cease. Well, yeah, man a Rasta man. I'm in a live on no capital. Live on no capital. Follow me now. That's every garden a capital. And me tell you short to say that a capital. And Los Angeles that a capital. And New York City that a capital. And some of the place where you want to live sweet. And even in the land there's no title feet. And some of these places where you want to live nice. And if them thief it in the name of Christ. Spanish town that a capital. And the whole of Kingston that a capital. And remember Portland that a capital. And all Trinidad that a capital. And Barbados that a capital. And tell them Bermuda that a capital. And I tell Colombia said that a capital. And around Cuba said that a capital.
Yes, family. Yes, family. Chronics captured land. Look, big tune, big tune. If you don't know that, you know it now. Yes, I'm going to put that link in the comments because that is our tune. And as I come off tonight, you know, that tune back on repeat, you know, and I ain't here doing the skank, man, calling the ancestors, man. Want to give thanks again for tuning in. All those energies, you know, they say where 2 and 3 are gathered, there am I in the mix. We got to start having that God consciousness, family. We got to understand that it don't take all of us, only a faithful few, and that energy is what's going to change everything in this reality, family. So it's that time. Know yourself, you know thyself. And that's where we at right now. We got to focus on that. Do not be distracted by the distractions. Know that they're here to serve their purpose as you are here to serve yours. Focus on what you're here to do. Your divine mission, man. That's what's up. Give thanks, family. Now, the idea is to be back on here on Wednesday and on Friday. And so, again, with other individuals sharing more information. And I want to update you on that other video I have there. This one right here might be, well, to be honest, it's going to be very controversial because, it starts out controversial. The last time I did something like this, man, It caused a frenzy on social media. So we're going to see what happened next. So join me on Wednesday, and we're going to discuss this controversial video. And we gathering. So y'all have a great evening. Haile Selassie first, Empress Reserve Manning is the perfect balance. And again, we thank Sister Ross for coming through and sharing, man. Go tell a friend and tell a friend. Make sure you share this with your peoples. It's that kind of time. Until then, family, y'all enjoy the rest of the evening. Get your rest. Have a strong week. And plan. Have a plan. That's what's up. Let me pull that tune up a bit. You know, I got to pull that tune up. Maria, I see you, Maria. I see you for sure.
Nice to dread and terror upon them. Good God of grace, Lord will. I have His mercy. I'm Mr. Old Slave Driver. Time is catching up on you. Old slave driver. I know your sins them are on. So carry we go home. I bring we run a east. Well, come on a Rasta man. A Rasta no live on no Catalan. What you mean? We carry we go home. What you mean? As if we settle and cease. Well, come on a Rasta man. A Rasta no live on no Catalan. Well, Lord America a Catalan. The whole of Jamaica a Catalan. A long time them want trick the Rasta man. Like them no know say that man a real African. You think me no member King Ferdinand and thief in Columbus have a golden plan. They make a wrong turn and end up in Caribbean. One Ras, then a side kill nothing Indian. And turn paradise in a plantation and bring cross one ship load the African. Now here comes the thief in Queen from England. Now she come well and envy.